In the practice of Satipatthana, Vipassana, you have to learn to deal with all types of objects. There are certain objects which are easier to deal with, and certain objects which are not difficult. But as the Dhamma says, for one of the intelligent temperament, no objects are difficult. Unfortunately, that does not include everybody. But for one with dull temperament, every object is difficult. Unfortunately, this occurs more often. For beginners, everything is difficult. As we can say, when you know it's not difficult, when you don't know it's difficult. But you've got to start somewhere. And from the easier one, we go to the more difficult ones. And finally, to be a master of the consciousness. I remember an incident, it's a very quite amusing, so I tell you. For many years, I've tried to avoid the cellular phone. You know, the handphone. Although the initial old one, the one you have to carry, heavy weight, like a luggage. But later, with so much traveling, I have to concede that it's more convenient if I have a handphone. Because when I go somewhere and meet with somebody, I call him, he pick me up. Otherwise, I'm completely lost. So my very first handphone was, guess what it was? My first handphone is the BlackBerry. Have you heard of that? BlackBerry, that's in US. I tried to learn how to use it. And my friend who got me the BlackBerry tried to explain to me. It's very simple, blah, 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 blah. The saliva was all over my face. I said, wait, stop it. And look at me. Just tell me where to start. This one, the power. Okay. Once you start, then you can get on to the other things. So the starting point is mindfulness. Yeah? And the starting point when it's mindfulness, it's also consciousness. Do not have any idea about consciousness. If you know mindfulness, then you have some idea of consciousness. So, yesterday we already started talking about consciousness. We always define consciousness as knowing, the quality of knowing is consciousness, because it's a specific characteristic of consciousness. You ask you, is that knowing? Take you, is that knowing? Do you know the quality of knowing? You understand? Tak faham? You know what's an apple? You don't know what's an apple? Huh? Do you know what's gold? Huh? You know what's gold? Of course he knows. So, do you know what is knowing? Huh? You know what's knowing? Yeah. What is knowing? Simple. It's very simple. I'm not asking you a difficult question. I'm asking you a simple question. Knowing. Knowing is the characteristic of consciousness. Once you see knowing, you know the consciousness is there. The knowing itself is consciousness. Yeah? But it's not just knowing. Together with knowing, there comes with so many other things. Yeah. For example, Teju. You know what's Teju? Teju is this fellow. Yeah? But it's not just this fellow. He comes with the head and the hands and the intestines and all those things. Yeah? Can Teju be there without his intestines? Cannot. Can Teju be there without his brain? Cannot. So he must come with all these things. But you don't see the intestines and you don't see the brain. You see the eyes and the nose and the face. So when you talk of consciousness, you see the knowing, yes, there's consciousness. But there's not just that. It comes with, you must think of all other things so you can have a complete picture of the consciousness. What's the special characteristic of this man, Young? What's the special characteristic? Or Keng? What is your special characteristic? Yeah. That means, how do you identify you?
Old man.
There's so many old men. He's older than you. Doesn't mean he's more of a Keng than you, huh? What's his character?
Like to eat.
That is true, but there's, of course, there's not so special about that. Everybody here likes to eat. I know he likes to eat. You know why? Because when he drives me somewhere as a kapi, I say, Mandai, here there's a place where Yong Tau Fu is especially good. And then he goes to another place, here nasi lemak is very good. I said, please, Yong, don't talk about food. But that's very Malaysian. Last time we were in India with a group of people, they're always talking about food. So they have to make a fine. Whoever talks about food first will be fined. You will have to pay for the next meal. That couldn't stop them. So the special characteristic is consciousness is the knowing. If you say generally a person and his face, of course, because his face and his face are two different faces. But then there's also not foolproof. Some people look alike. Even names have the same names. So what did you do? Fingerprint, toe print. When I first wanted to be a long-term visitor in Europe, Italy, they take my 10 fingerprints. They take my palm prints. I'm surprised they didn't take the back of my hand. They take my side view, this view, front view, back view. I'm surprised they didn't take my top view. They would be very characteristic because tada rambut. Nowadays they have DNA. It's more characteristic, but you cannot see a DNA. When I say, are you Professor Koo? You see your passport, everything. I don't believe. I must test your DNA first. It's getting too far. But this is still rupa. You don't talk of the mind. Is it? The mind has got so that people can possess. You know, possession. Kui gypsy gua. You know. The people, they can control your mind, they possess your mind. And then, how? So, it's even more difficult. So, when you talk consciousness, generally we say the mind. Okay, mind. It's very general. But to really understand the consciousness very much, then you really have to look at the mind very carefully. So that like a person, you look at the mind from this side, look at the mind from that side, from top, bottom, inside, outside. Then only you get a more complete picture, like a scan, no? Scan. Even a scan only the body. How are you going to scan the mind? Can you scan the mind? Difficult. But with meditation, you can do something like that. So at first, get a more general idea what the mind is. So the general working of the mind is at the 6 sense doors. Seeing consciousness, hearing consciousness. Seeing consciousness knows the eye object. Hearing consciousness knows the sound. Smelling the smell. Tasting consciousness knows the taste. Touching consciousness knows one of the 3 elements, earth, fire, and wind. And the mind consciousness, that's more difficult, everything. The mind object. This is knowing consciousness according to its object. From the knowing, now you have 6. Knowing 1. The knowing of the object is the consciousness. But the 6 objects, the seeing consciousness, hearing consciousness, smelling, tasting, touching consciousness, 6 objects. Now comes the more sensitive, important, more sensitive time. Is seeing consciousness and hearing consciousness the same consciousness? It's not. Huh? Smelling, tasting, is it the same consciousness? No. All the six, seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, knowing, mind, consciousness, is not the same. But most people don't see the difference. They don't see the mind sees, the mind hears, the mind tastes, the mind knows. Same. Why same? Because they don't see the difference. When the seeing consciousness arises, there's no hearing consciousness, and so on. This is, if you learn Abhidhamma, this is intellectual understanding. Theoretical knowledge. But when you practice meditation, it's different. When you see the consciousness, see, when you open your eyes and you look at and you close your eyes, the seeing consciousness disappears. I mean, here, hearing consciousness, tongue, every tongue is a different hearing consciousness. Tongue, hearing consciousness arise, disappear with the object, sound. Another tongue, the hearing consciousness arise with the object and the sound. When you do vipassana mindfully, moment to moment, with clear comprehension, and then you experience that. Now that is important, because it helps to see the impermanence of the consciousness. It helps to see the non-self of the consciousness. Unless you see non-self of the consciousness, difficult to progress in vipassana. Because the very strong clinging or wrong view to self is very strong with regards to consciousness. Why? What is the mind? Usually, who are you? Usually people think of the mind as themselves. Who are you? Is you the body? Sometimes people identify with the body, but more with the mind, because they cannot see, they know the mind is there, but they cannot see clearly. And because there's a craving for existence, so it attaches to the mind as something everlasting, as a person, the soul, the entity. So unless you break the consciousness into bits and pieces with mindfulness, you take one part of the brain, this hypothalamus, take another brain, this is the cerebral. But it's the brain. The mind is something else. So to be able to see the importance of this, you have to do more specifically Cittanupassana, mindfulness of consciousness. Yeah? Otherwise, the attachment to the consciousness as self, as ego, very strong, difficult to get rid of. So often people start watching consciousness by following the object, tagging. Tagging. Tag. Like, for example, people who study birds. Any bird watcher around here? You bird watcher? No, you tak suka burung. You. Oh enggak, you suka burung. You like birds or not? Do you like birds?
Parrot.
When I was young, I stayed in Malacca, that house near the cemetery. There are birds. They rear birds and they rear fishes. My aunts, they have these birds. There's a white cockatoo and I don't know what. Makes a lot of noise. But I like it because it's interesting. Huh? But it's a pity they get tied up. So people study birds. How to study birds? They see where they fly, where they go to. Huh? So what they do, they tag them. They ring them. And they put a ring around their one. Huh? Okay. This was set free in Malacca by Chujilan. Okay, see where she goes. So you tag Chujilan. You just call the bird Chujilan. And you tag her and then let her free and see where she goes. So she goes everywhere, difficult to trace. So now there are special gadgets, electronic stuff. And then you know where. In the morning she went to this place, to that place, and after that she go further and further away. This is tagging. So you keep track. So you want to learn the mind, you must keep track of the mind. Sometimes you see, sometimes you don't. That means you don't really know the person. So what do? You put noting. Noting is one way of tagging, lifting, pushing, stepping. It's not really tagging the mind, it's telling the mind where to go. But tagging mind, you have to follow the mind. First, of course, in beginning, difficult. So you know the more simple ones first. Seeing, hearing, touching. That is one. And then the other subsidiary things coming in. Because when you follow the mind, it meets with different objects. Then it reacts differently. The first one is we call walking the dog. You take a dog for a walk. How do you take a dog for a walk? Anybody here got dogs? Siapa dah ada anjing? Suji, how do you take a dog for a walk? Huh? Huh? You put a leash over the neck, and you tie him around the neck and go, doggy, doggy, go, go. He doesn't go this way. Hopefully he listens to you. So doggy, doggy, so you take them. So similarly, when you watch your rising, falling, you watch your right step, left step, you're supposed to follow the mind, follow the object. Right step, you're mindful. When you're mindful, you know that you're mindful. And so the mind is there. Left foot, mindful, you know mindfulness is there. So you know the mind is there. You're not mindful, what happened? The mind is not there. Where has the mind gone? Thinking, 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 thinking. Very soon, where will you be? You go to the best Yong Tau Fu place. Because halfway while walking, you're thinking of Yong Tau Fu. I want to go to Yong Tau Fu. The best Yong Tau Fu in town. Very often when I come here, even Kim Fong tells me, one day, this is the best putu piring in Malacca. What's the best putu piring in Malacca? Bukit Brahma. Right? She knows. Everybody in Malacca knows. Do you know? I know. Do you know? You tak tahu, you tak makan putu piring. So,
Increase in price now.
suppose everything increases. Even meditation retreat increase in price. Especially Kota Tinggi. Because Chu Chi Kiong says, I'll cook. You give me this money, I cannot cook anything for you. Poor quality food. So I have to raise to 30 ringgit. Then the last retreat, 40 ringgit. Chu Chi Kiong got angry. Why you send me, you raise the price? I didn't raise. Why should she raise? I said, not your business, the Sam's business. If anybody want to complain, complain to Sam. So I don't know. Basuh tangan, sanitize. It's true, nowadays food price rise up so much, and then you have some proper food. The cook cannot do anything much. Overseas is more expensive. Of course, the food is also more expensive. So we come back to our topic. So you check, right, left, right. So when it's not there, the mind runs well. So as soon, you must make a point, as soon as you realize you're not mindful, you're not with your object, where is it? Thinking, 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 sleepy, 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 pain, pain, pain. The mind got distracted from its main cause of events. And so you must find it back. Where are you? The dog will be eating, what? Eating shit. No, the dog likes to eat shit, sometimes. So look for all terrible things, right? Sometimes we talk about bad memories. This fellow is very bad. He cheated me. Then you get angry. Why are you going to make yourself unhappy? Why are you going to think of those things? Huh? I don't want to think, but the mind wants to think. Why? Because you didn't meditate, you didn't train mindfulness, not much mental training, discipline, mental discipline. And so in this way you keep tag on the mind. The first part is watching the dog, walking the dog. Make the mind your good friend. The Dhammapada says the mind can be your best friend, even better than your parents. The mind can be your worst enemy, worse than your enemy. So the well-trained mind brings happiness. The untrained mind brings suffering. This simple law, ABC. Correct? You meditate, wisdom arises. You don't meditate, defilements arise. Simple. This is what the Buddha's word you can see from the Dhammapada, from the Tipitaka. Simple law and order. Yeah? Hatred is not overcome by hatred, but love is hatred overcome. This is the eternal law. Metta versus aversion, anger. This is a simple law. Yeah? But you go and tell them to the Palestinians and the Israelis. Don't tell it to Zelensky and Putin. Killing anybody. Why? So, simple law. So difficult to learn. Mấy con bà la con cực kỳ khắc sinh. Make sure you don't get angry. So, the basis of all mental training is mindfulness. The basis for all wholesome states is mindfulness. So if you get mindful, then you control the mind. That's control. But you want to control the mind complete, then you always keep track on the mind. That's where Cittanupassana comes in, which includes not the simple just seeing, hearing, smelling, tasting, touching, but especially the knowing in the mind object. Okay? Very simple. So you try to keep track of the mind, where it goes. It goes to the six sense doors. When you go to the six sense doors, this one you're still talking about walking the dog. Chinese say liu go. Liu go. So you walk the dog, you follow the dog. And you see, when you follow the dog, you know how the dog behaves. Then you train. You try to bite people, say, don't bite people. You train it not to bite. Nice dog, nice dog. Nice man. Train it. Cool down, cool down. So you have to train the dog. So when the mind goes to the six sense doors, meet with the six sense objects, and it responds to the six sense object. When it's nice, he gets attached. When not nice, he gets angry. When neutral, boring, he gets deluded. So instead, you must change it all to mindfulness. From greed to non-greed, from anger to non-anger, from delusion to non-delusion. This all comes with starting point, mindfulness. So in this case, you know the consciousness, then you follow it to six sense doors, and you see how it responds. And when it responds properly, you watch further. When it does not respond favorably, you restrain it. All the while when you're doing this, you're watching the consciousness in some way. But in the beginning, not really. In the beginning, you watch sometimes the object, sometimes the consciousness. When you're not seeing, what do you watch? The seeing consciousness or the eye object? Usually it's the eye object, because it's strong. When you hear the sound, somebody calling you, Calvin! Yes, because you hear the word Calvin, it's calling me. You watch your consciousness, hearing or not? No, you don't hear. You watch the word Calvin. So you hear the sound. But if you used to watching consciousness, you can watch the consciousness while you're hearing the object. You can watch the seeing consciousness when you're looking at the object. Can occur at the same time. Seeing consciousness and object occur at the same time. The hearing consciousness and the sound occur at the same time. But you cannot watch both at the same time. Different. Not generally at the same time, yes, but not at the same moment. When you talk of moment, you're talking of Abhidhamma already. Moment to moment is different. But in a general way, yes. Because although there are two different processes, they occur very quickly. You look properly, no, you're not looking at it at the same time. Seeing is one thing. you watch the seeing consciousness, it occurs after, immediately after. This one you have to be very fast and sharp, then you can catch it. So in this way, you're beginning to get more detail in watching the consciousness. When you watch the consciousness like that in more detail, then you see non-self and impermanence of the consciousness clearer. Now at this point, to be able to do that, you have to have clear perception with regards to the consciousness, so that you can follow the consciousness wherever it goes, whatever it does, and whatever form it takes. Yeah? In the first part, when we were talking like taking the dog for a walk, you are in control of the consciousness because you're mindful, but not because you're watching the consciousness all the time. Sometimes you're watching rising, falling. At the beginning of a lot of rupa, rising, falling, but you're mindful, you're keeping track of the consciousness in the sense that your mindfulness controls the consciousness. But you're not watching the consciousness all the time. When you're doing real Cittanupassana, you're watching the consciousness all the time. For example, you want to make a very close, follow closely, you're a detective. You want to look for who? Look for, make a report on who? On Sally Ong. What she does, everything, so you try to follow her. But she's very sneaky, you know, she walks very fast, and sometimes she pretends this, that, so she sometimes very difficult. So you follow, at first you cannot follow her all the time. Sometimes you see her shoes, when the shoe is in front of the door, Sally must be inside. No, not necessary. She just put her shoes there to fool you. So these are like watching rising, falling, all those. You're following the object, but you're mindful. It's okay. It's still under your mind is still under control, but not necessarily you're watching the consciousness. But watching consciousness, you see Sally that wherever she goes up the hill, down the hill, go into the bathroom, go into the toilet, go into the room. Also, you can see her what she's doing, you know. So that means you have these cameras all over the place, you know? So they cannot escape unnoticed. Can or not? You have all these special gadgets and drones to track you. Yeah. When the person wants to track you down, there's something what they do, you know. So they make a detailed study of you. That's why now all these secret agents that's what they do. They track person what he does everywhere. So they wants to kill him, he can send a drone to the exact place where he's talking and doing, even in the toilet, he can go in the toilet and bang him. It's finished. That's what you're supposed to do with your consciousness. Of course, you don't kill the consciousness. Consciousness cannot be simply killed. You know? The consciousness will kill you. You don't kill the consciousness. So, what you have to do is purify the mind. When you purify the mind, and then it solves all the problems. So generally, you know the consciousness by what? By the object. The two things you know the consciousness. its object and its mental states. You know the consciousness by its objects and mental states. Every time moment to moment, the mental states arise and pass away. When the change is greater, mental states change greater. More different mental states arise and pass away. In Abhidhamma, I talk of 6, 7 universals. At least these 7 universals must be there when the consciousness is present. But they arise and pass away moment to moment. On the top of that, other type of mental states can be present, like great anger delusion, like mindfulness, like concentration, like wisdom. All other mental states may be present, but they change. The other thing is the object changes with the object, with the consciousness. And the consciousness changes with the object. They change together. The mind and object comes together. The mental states and the object comes together. So when you follow that properly, you would notice the changes of the mental states and the object as the consciousness flows moment to moment. Normally you know the consciousness by the mental states and the object. Like angry with somebody. Angry with who? Angry with the what? Who can you be angry? Angry with the dog. He's barking too loud. I think I want to kill the dog. So you get angry with the dog. So, but when the dog is, one day the dog keep quiet. So nice, huh? You can sleep, no problem sleeping. Why? Because the absence of the object, the consciousness also completely changes. When the dog is barking, you are like a demon. When the dog not barking, you become quiet, and you are like an angel. Why? Because the consciousness is there. I like to tell this story to give a good example. Some of you may have heard it. When I was in a train in Italy, there was this lady I was sitting there, between the carriage, there's this lady in front of me. She was with the boyfriend. She was scolding the boyfriend or husband. I don't know who that was. Non-stop, terrible, very vicious. Hair was all over the place. The teeth was like coming out like that, Pontianak, the teeth come out like that. Yeah? Pontianak is even smarter. The Dracula, the teeth is like that, they have to sink into you. But Pontianak, he got so straight and poke at you. So her teeth was like, then I said, my goodness, this terrible lady. So I give metta to her, metta. Suddenly she stopped, She turned and looked at me, and she smiled, now she looks quite pretty. And after that she was scared. Then she looked back at her boyfriend. Terrible. But you think of the mind, how is it? This is only the physical manifestation. When you see the mind, how different it is. So it's a completely different mind. So you see the difference of the consciousness by the difference of the mental states. also the difference of the object and the difference of the consciousness. Object, for example, a bright light, you sleepy, you might become dark, dull, and you fall asleep. It's called a dull mind, dark mind. So what do? You take the mind and shine at the floor, torchlight, super torchlight, shine at his face. And then he won't fall asleep. He may be angry, but he's not sleepy. Very, very mindful. So it's different. That's why the one advice, if you're sleepy, go and meditate in a bright place. This is called object conditioning. The bright object creates a bright mind. So the different type of objects influence the arising of different type of consciousness. So you need to have the correct object. In Vipassana, of course, you must have the Paramattha Dhamma. That's where the realities are present. And you must say object that you can be mindful and easily mindful of for beginners, so that you can follow. So you have a proper object. Some people cannot get rising, falling. Some people get difficult to concentrate, nothing to hold on to. The mind keeps on floating, like clouds. You cannot feel a rising, falling. Hopeless case. I'm sure you can feel it. If not, you pinch. Take a clothes bag. You know what's clothes bag? You take your stomach and pack it. Not advisable. Too long, you get blue-black. But no, so sometimes you can use, some people use, the trousers, they use a pen there, They put a pillow there. It works. Say what you like, it works. Of course, my method is put a hand there, rising, falling, you can. You cannot feel this, I don't know what you can feel. You want to use the Anapanasati. No, this is like a small wind coming out. What can you feel? Someone also cannot feel, you want to feel the wind in the nose. Difficult. Chinese especially difficult. Indian, Westerner, long nose, with moustache, okay. Really. So you have an easy object. Object easy not enough. You have to have the three characteristics clear. Reality clear. Paramattha Dhamma. And then you can follow the object. You can look at the characteristics of the object. The specific characteristics, the general characteristics, the three characteristics. Then the mind can follow. And when you're really mindful of these things, you're also mindful of the consciousness as it goes on. So you see the change of the object. You follow the consciousness by recognizing strongly the characteristic of knowing. In the beginning, not so much of the knowing. In the beginning, more of the mental states and its object. Mental states change, object change, sometimes you get lost. But when you watch the consciousness, then you keep track of the consciousness. The characteristic of knowing. That means when you see, okay, this Ong Tia Wei, follow Ong Tia Wei. You don't follow his food, you don't follow his trousers, you don't follow his hair. You follow the man Ong Tia Wei. So wherever he goes, you keep track. In this case, it's not Ong Tia Wei, it's a consciousness. Yeah? So you follow. And then you're really doing Cittanupassana, mindfulness of consciousness. Otherwise, doing more mindfulness of mental factors and objects and things like that, whatever, but not really consciousness specifically. It's okay. Main thing, you're mindful and you're following. And so when you can follow the consciousness, then you can see the changes of the consciousness with regards to its object and its mental states. And then you see more closely the different type of consciousness, the different types of conditioning, how they change, why they change, not just through theory, but through experiencing, watching their change. The normal change in consciousness, if you see clearly, then you're seeing conditioning. Because it changes. Why it changes? How it changes? At the moment of change. One consciousness disappears, another consciousness comes, and a moment of change. And you see the conditioning. The moment the rising, falling changes, and you see the change. It's a conditioning of consciousness, part of the matter. When you see this conditioning and with the changes, then you see impermanence, the three universal characteristics. Here I say, to be clear, is change is not specifically impermanence. Impermanence means anicca, Pali word. Change is an English word. We say change and we say impermanence, anicca. We use it as a noun. Impermanence, anicca. Rupang anicang, Vedana anicang, Sanya anicang, Sankara anicang, Vijnana anicang. You know that? Who knows that? Seliong should know it. How come you don't know? Rupa is what? Materiality. Matter. Anicang? Impermanence. Anicang is object. Rupa, matter, is subject. Rupang anicang. Materiality is impermanence. So you see, that means impermanence means the moment-to-moment arising and disappearing. It's the moment-to-moment process. It's kind of reality. The moment it arises, it disappears. What is arising and disappear? Dhamma, phenomena. At first it arises, and slowly, pain comes, more, I want to die. After slowly go. You see change in pain, slow change. Torturous pain, unforgiving pain. Your perception of change becomes better, you go faster. Moment to moment, it's always changing. Only whether you can see clearly or not. When you see clearly, the moment is already passed. So what is changing? Too fast for you to see. You don't even see the pain. You just see something come and The moment it comes, it's already disappeared. That is anicca, impermanence. So from there, part by part, you go into that. So when that, you cannot say what it is. What it is Dhamma. Paramatha Dhamma, ultimate realities. So that's where the training is. Let's go to the consciousness. When you see the consciousness as impermanence, see it changing first. And from changing, you get to impermanence. So that's where the general progression of the consciousness. But no, in life that is pure, that is watching pure consciousness. Cittanupassana, one level, basic level, you watch consciousness as you watch other objects together. And you watch the six sense doors, seeing, smelling, tasting, cupping, knowing. No, it's an in-between thing. You don't watch consciousness all the time. You watch the consciousness and its objects coming and going. Just like walking the dog, going to the six sense doors. This is more general. And even in this point, you also have other things aspects of consciousness, besides seeing, hearing, smelling, touching, knowing, and the different types of reaction at the mind door. And also things like intentions and other sorts of mental activities, like thinking, laziness, these are mental states, and all other things. So in between, you learn all these things. But for beginners, the primary object is the body, rising, falling, sitting, touching. Because you cannot go into consciousness purely in the beginning. You go there, you should get lost sooner or later. You cannot go to the mental objects. Mental objects, so many things out there will take you away, for sure. So when you find your mind turn kaput, a bit scattered and not very strong, weak, getting weaker and weaker, bolak. Then when you go back, establish your basic mindfulness, rising, falling, rising, falling. This one, you can't go wrong. Can you go wrong? You follow the rising, falling, sitting, touching, you can't go wrong. Because it's very clear. But still some people can go wrong because something wrong with the mind. I remember I asked someone I gave half an hour to tell him how to watch rising and falling, what. But at the end of the talk, so you know what to do? Yes. What do you do? I said, not me to hood. I spent so much time trying to explain to you. You are really susah banyak, not susah sikit, susah banyak. Well, I tried. So to ask somebody more patient, like Mr. Ong. I asked one lady, very patient, to do that. She took them half an hour to tell him, to tell her to say, when you watch touching, feel the touch sensation. That old lady asked her, I tell her, she cannot understand. So I asked this very patient lady. She tried again and again and again. After half an hour, she got a message. When you touch, I feel the sensation of touch. Yeah? Some people like that, you know. Some people, they're very clever in other things, you know, but when it comes to meditation, they're very dull, you know. Yeah. I ask them to do computer work, blah, 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 they can do everything, you know. But I ask them to meditate, watch rising, falling, sleep. So, different people, different ways. So you watch the consciousness. By seeing, hearing, tasting, touching, intention, and so on. Then after that you go deeper. That means after when you go deeper, that means your mind becomes more concentrated. You go more into the mind door. When you're more into mind door, and you're more aware of consciousness as to its specific characteristic, then you can follow the consciousness. When you follow the consciousness in this way, in a concentrated manner, you don't hear anything, you don't see anything, even you don't feel your body at all. In the beginning, you feel a little bit here and there, because it's not so concentrated yet. When totally concentrated, and you go into just consciousness, and then you have to watch the finer aspects of consciousness. This is done more with people who have deeper concentration. And also the people who do samatha, jhanas, they come out, they have to watch the consciousness. They watch the consciousness and the jhana factors rise and pass away. But for most people, it's not so necessary. If you come, you eventually will come to it and you will be able to do it. And then you become, meditation becomes much deeper and more interesting. We stop here tonight. Any questions? Yeah? No, huh? You all understand everything. Yeah? Sally Ong. What question? You always have a lot of questions.
No, don't know. Of course, a lot of questions.
Just ask one. Satu cukup.
Can you see where trigger consciousness?
Because your aspect's not good, is it?
So what you say, follow and 6 sense door?
All of the consciousness, it goes round the 6 sense doors. Yeah? Can do it? Not try, you have to do it. Yeah?
Not enough sharp.
You sharpen it. Okay, we'll come back.